guys, we are back. Make sure your cameras are on. All right, so did we have everybody? Missing Francelli, we got Nurga, we have, oh, Francelli's there, okay. Erica, Vanessa and company. We have Jeffrey, Muslima, Stephanie M, Miguel, stationary, good. Elena, Ingrid, E. Stefani, Chris, Millie, Fabiola, Sonia, Arbelis, Yvette, need camera. Verona, need your camera. And got David. Well, cool. Muslima, you're welcome. All right, cool. So I need your full attention to this chapter. As I said, this is like the most heavily tested chapter in the exam. And this is nationwide. So this is the nationwide portion of the exam. There's roughly 22 questions. Out of 110, there's 22 questions that involve this chapter. That's why it's so important. Okay? I cannot stress it enough. Now, agent's duties to the customer. We already went over this, but just kind of like a recap right here. It says a traditional notion of caveat emptor, which means let the buyer beware, caveat emptor, sorry. Let the buyer beware, no longer applies unequivocally to real estate transactions. Agents do have certain obligations to customers, even though they do not represent the customer, okay? In general, they owe the third party, as we said already, honesty and fair dealing, reasonable care and skill, and proper disclosure. So there's still a few things we must disclose regardless. And we talked about that before with the stick figures. So if you just joined YouTube, go back to the previous video. We have a video with stick figures. Compliments of Erica. All right, now, an agent has a duty to deal fairly and honestly with a customer. Thus, an agent may not deceive. You cannot deceive, defraud, or otherwise take advantage of the customer. So like we said earlier in the previous, in part one of this, we said if we find out from the buyer that they have more money in the bank account, we're not going to run to our seller and say, hey, there's more money. This offers 300, but there's more money, right? Before you do that, you have to then turn to the buyer and say, hey, listen, I appreciate you telling me that, but I want to give you a heads up. I represent the seller. I don't represent you, right? So we have to do this. We have to let him know that to be fair and honest, anything you tell me from now on, I will pass along to the seller. So careful on your words. If you want me to represent you, right? If you want me to represent you, then I'll keep certain things confidential. If not, then just want to let you know, again, I represent seller. Or vice versa. If you represent the buyer and the seller tells you certain things, you have to also let him know, okay? So treat him fairly and honestly. Reasonable care and skill means that the agent will be held to the standards of knowledge, expertise, and ethics that are commonly maintained by other agents in the area. Proper disclosure primarily concerns disclosure of agency, like I just said, who do you represent, right? Property condition and environmental hazards, as we spoke about already in the previous chapter. An agent, I'll address that, Miguel, in a second. An agent who fails to live up to prevailing standards may be held liable for negligence, fraud, or violation of state real estate license laws and regulation. So agents should be particularly careful about misrepresentations when offering inappropriate expert advice when working with customers. This goes both to customers or clients, but be careful with what your state or what your intention is. And we're going to go into misrepresentation right after. So Miguel said, oh, so you can offer to be higher then? Why not? If they are unrepresented and your seller is okay with you representing the buyer, why not? That's why, for instance, you host an open house. A open house to have potential leads, whether it's buyers or additional sellers that just want to look at, sometimes sellers go into open houses. They just want to compare the house that's listed, right, with the house that they have. So if this one's sold for 500 and mine's better, I can make more. If mine's worse, then let me stay put. You never know. But you're trying to gain leads out of it. But a lot of times it happens that unrepresented buyers show up. So if they showed up and you showed the house, can you offer to represent them in the transaction? Of course. No doubt about it. Okay? All right? So, misrepresentation. This is key. There are different types of misrepresentation. The very first one is intentional. Every time you have intentional misrepresentation, it's fraudulent. You did it on purpose with the intent to deceive one of the parties. Okay, that's pretty much what it is. You did it on purpose. You knew about the issue and you hid that issue from the customer or client. Okay? Negligent. You were careless. Negligent. You were careless. You should have known. That's your position. You should have known. You were negligent. You did not do your job. Simple. As an example, you walk into a house. We are supposed to look at every detail of the house. Look at the ceiling. Look at the floor. Look at the corners. Right? If it smells like fresh paint, why fresh paint? The house is old. I don't see anything renovated. Why fresh paint? Mold. Most likely. You guys understand? So you need to pay attention to these. I'm not saying that every time is mold, but you need to pay attention to these details. That's your job. Okay? You should have known. Misrepresentation of expertise. I'm the best. I know everything about law. Nobody knows about law like I do. Right? Simple. If you have no knowledge about law, if you have no knowledge about plumbing, why would you say that you're the best and nobody knows better than you do? Okay? So that's misrepresentation of expertise. Again, not my monkey. If somebody asks you a question, refer them to the expert. Very important. Okay, availability, information, compensation. These are easy. Right here. Page 146 for me, maybe 144 for you. And it says right here, an agent is liable for a breach of duty to a client or customer. Since clients and customers rely on the expertise and actions of the agents performing within the scope of their authority, regulatory agencies and courts aggressively enforce agency laws, standards, and regulations. Breach of duty may result in rescission of the listing agreement, so canceling, causing a loss of potential commission, forfeiture of any compensation that may already been earned, so you might have earned the compensation, but you're giving it up, forfeiture of it, okay? Disciplinary action by state law authorities, including license suspension and revocation, and we're going to get into licensing later, or a lawsuit for damages in court, damages suffered by the customer or the client. So you could lose your license, you might have to compensate and get punished, damages in court. All right, forms of real estate agency. Can you guys tell me what is agency? Let me know in the chat. What is agency? What is agency? Oh, hey, Stefani. Something is missing there. Something is wrong there. Change one word. Between agent and principal. Employer-employee relationship. Yes, absolutely, guys. Employer-employee. It's not the relationship between the seller and the buyer. No. Seller is independent of the buyer's actions. Buyer is independent of the seller's actions. Agency means we got hired by one of the parties to represent them to the best of our ability. That's what agency means. So it's an employer-employee relationship. And it's very important you understand that. I'm sorry? That's agency law in general. So it's not national agency, it's agency law in general. The point of this chapter being called national agency is because when we get to state, there's additional things that you must do or comply with in terms of agency. Okay? So, forms of agency. Heard the noise out there. I'm just. Forms of agency. There's single agency. That means you represent one party. Nirka, you're bringing the whole family. I'm going to charge you $1,000 for this. Just saying. All right. So there's single agency. That means you represent one party. There's sub-agency. That means extension of the original agency. Okay, I'll explain better in a second. Dual agency. That means you represent both parties. No agency or sub-agency means you don't represent either party or extend liability. Okay? So single agency, you represent either the seller, not the Beyonce song, okay? Single agency is you represent either the seller or the buyer. Okay? Dual agency, that means you represent both parties. No agency, you don't represent either one. Okay? And the whole sub-agency thing, for example, the seller hires the brokerage, so the broker in this case, right, to list the property through your efforts. You are a sub-agent of the client. Why? Because the agent is the broker, so it trickles down to you, sub-agent, right? And there's another type of sub-agency, but we'll get there. Okay, so I'm going to highlight this, even though I didn't. We're going to highlight later anyway. But just for now, highlight this. It says the primary forms. It's going to come up anyway. But the primary forms of relationship between the brokers and principals are single, dual, sub-agency. In the fourth kind of relationship, it's referred to as transaction brokerage. And under transaction brokerage, there's no agency. That means all you're doing is managing the transaction. Transaction brokerage, you're managing the transaction. You don't represent anyone other than the transaction itself. Okay? You got to treat everybody fairly and honestly. Forms of agency and no agency in real estate brokerage. So as it says here, single agency, you have agent, which is you, and the client. Sub-agency, the agent is the broker. You are a sub-agent of the client. That's what it is. Sub-agency. Because you have to understand, you guys represent the broker. You don't represent yourselves. You represent the broker. So when you go knock on the door, right? You go knock on the door and say, "Hey, Mr. Seller, would you like to sell?" You're doing that on behalf of your broker. So in this scenario, agent is the broker. Sub-agent is the salesperson. Okay? Agent is the broker because it's the brokerage that's hired. You are entitled to represent the broker to the best of your ability, and if the broker is representing the client, then by extension, sub-agent, whatever you say is representation of the client's wishes as well. There's dual agency, again, is where you represent both the buyer and the seller. You represent both. There's the no agency, and they put dashes. You don't represent either party. This is the TB, or transaction broker. Okay. And no sub-agency is direct to the client. Okay. So the agent represents one party in the transaction. The client may either be the seller or the buyer. We already went over this. Seller's agency, buyer's agency. Real estate vernacular calls an agent of the seller or the owner the listing broker. So if you represent the seller, you represent the listing. So you represent the seller, listing broker. An agent who works for the listing broker and who obtained the listing is called the listing agent. A broker who represents the buyer is a buyer's broker, and one who does this as a special agent is a buyer broker. Okay, I just want to point out, it doesn't say here, we'll say in the later on, but a buyer's broker or buyer broker is also called selling. You're going to find this several times in the book, in the questions. Selling broker. So write this somewhere. Erica, yes, we're always sub-agent of the client because the agent is the broker. If you walk away, if you go to a different agency, the client stays with the broker because the agreement is with the broker. Make sure you guys remember this. If you represent the seller, you're the listing broker. If you represent the buyer, you're the buyer broker or selling broker. And this is where it gets confusing. Yep, I saw the faces. Yep. I love when, no offense, the Scooby-Doo face comes up and you're like, huh? What happened here? What do you mean I represent the buyer and I'm the selling? Here's the thing. If you go to, you go to the Verizon store or T-Mobile or whatever. There's a phone there, okay? This phone is available. This phone is listed, right? Because the moment they put there on display, that's what it is. It's listed. You guys understand? It's available. When you get there, there's somebody on the floor that says, hey, you're looking for anything? Can I help you? Right? Even though you're already going to say no, I don't need your help. But they're there. And if you do engage and say, yeah, sure, I'm looking for a phone. Well, I came to the right store. You know how it is. So here's the thing. The moment you engage in the relationship, the person that's on the floor is the one that effected the sale and is now representing the buyer. Does that make sense? So the store is listing the phone. The store is the seller. It's listing or advertising the phone. Somebody on the floor is a salesperson that's going to sell this to the buyer. So affects the sale. You guys got it? So selling broker, because they conclude the sale. Without a buyer, there's no sale. It's just a listing. Questions? Let me know. There's listing broker, there's selling broker. Listing broker is the seller's broker, while selling broker is the buyer's broker. Let me know if you have questions. No questions? Easy? Good? Great. Outside co-brokers and agents. So there's our agency. right? Let's say New Direction Realty. Our agency has 30-something agents. If there's a buyer or a seller that come through, right, then our agency represents that buyer or seller. If the property or the buyer, let's say it's from a different agency, let's say Wycard, then they are cooperating brokerage. They're co-brokers, they're cooperating brokerage. So I could be listing a property and then Wycard brings the buyer. Okay? If that's the case, it's a cooperative agreement and we share commission. You guys got it? So it is common practice. In fact, certain states mandate that you have to cooperate with outside brokers or agents. Certain states, including New Jersey, they mandate that you cooperate with other brokerages. Okay? So a listing broker in return agrees to share the commission with a cooperating broker. It is cooperating brokers who form multiple listing services to facilitate the process of bringing buyers and sellers together. Now, a multiple listing service, or MLS, right? We'll talk about it also in a different chapter, but here we go. I call it the Craigslist for realtors. For those of you that still know what Craigslist is, even though apparently it's not talked about anymore, everything is Amazon now. You want to buy or sell, Amazon. Not even eBay is around, right? They're there somewhere, right? But everything happens on Amazon. Even Facebook tried that whole marketplace thing, and not happening. So I call this the Craigslist for realtors. One day I'll call it the Amazon for realtors, but it's where you advertise property for sale to other potential realtors and even the public. So this way, guys, there's 21 of us here in this Zoom, right? There's 21 and probably people watching on YouTube as well. But there's 21 here. I have a property for sale. What am I going to do? I'm going to list it on our MLS, let's call it. Okay, so we're going to call it New Direction MLS because it's created based on geographic areas and particular groups. So I'm going to create New Direction MLS. We all going to share the MLS. We all contribute for this to be up and be maintained. If I put something on the MLS, so the Craigslist for Realtors, all of you, if you're members of my MLS, all of you will see, hey, new listing. Like you get a report. If you have alerts on for your clients, you'll get a report that says, hey, Bruno just listed this property. Check it out. You guys understanding? So MLS, or multiple listing service, is where we get to cooperate with other brokers, is where we're exposing the property for other brokers to bring a potential buyer. Okay? So if you have a buyer and you don't have a seller, where do you go? MLS. Simple. Or you can go knock on doors. That's also an option, which is very effective if you know what you're doing. Okay? Okay, so all of the listing brokers, salespeople who have agreed to work for the broker to find a customer are sub-agents of the listing broker. So Erica, you had asked this, so all of them are. And owe fiduciary duties to the broker and by extension to the broker's client. Again, we knock on doors, but it's on behalf of the broker. Miguel just asked, is that a national database? No, New Direction MLS is not a national database yet. No. No, there's no national MLS. There's Realtor.com, which pulls from almost all the MLSs, but we're upgrading our system at the Realty, and I just uploaded the 4 MLSs that we work with into the system. So in New Jersey, we have 4, but there's more. I work with GSMLS, NJSMLS, CJSMLS, and MOMLS. So Garden State, New Jersey, Central Jersey, and Monmouth Ocean County MLS. They're all organized within a geographic area. So you would assume NJMLS or GSMLS to cover the whole state. They do. But then these other groups came along and says, hey, we are in the Hudson County, and we're really good at what we do. We don't need outsiders. So we're going to advertise only to people in the Hudson County or with interest in the Hudson County. So they have their own, right? Does that make sense? It sucks because now you have to pay fees here and pay fees there if you want to have that access. I just answered that. Yep. So I have access to 4 MLSs, as I was saying, but we started only with 1 and then slowly expanding. The next one we can have is the Hudson MLS. Okay. All right. So dual agency means you represent both. You got that? What gives you access? So you pay a fee, you pay a membership. That's it. And then as an agent, you also pay the membership. So the broker pays the bulk of it to have access, and then the agents pay a little bit less, but they have to pay the membership. It's like a gym membership. Okay. You can only get in if you pay the fee. Okay, conflict of interest. So Yvette, you're asking before. Where's Yvette? Okay, right there. Yvette, you're asking before about conflict of interest in dual agency when you represent both. It's a very serious issue, but it says right here, dual agency contains an inherent conflict of interest. Since many of an agent's fiduciary duties can only be rendered to one party, dual agency is by definition difficult, but it's not impossible. So again, it's by agreement. If both parties agree, nothing wrong with it. You just have to know that you cannot help somebody lower or increase the price. You have to have what's called written informed consent. So in states that permit, not all do, but in states that permit or allow dual agency, the agent must meet strict disclosure requirements, and the principals must agree in writing, okay, must agree in writing to proceed with the dual agency relationship. Very, very important. The disclosed voluntary dual agency, again, means that both parties have the written informed consent and they agree to this transaction. It must be disclosed through disclosure forms, which is the CIS, Consumer Information Statement, right? Through other confirmation forms, and also, again, in the sales contract that you represent both parties. Must be disclosed everywhere. There's implied and undisclosed agency. We talked about this, right? Is where you don't disclose to the other party, or you said my buyer when it was just a customer. The moment you said my buyer, you made promises. You are representing the seller, but now representing the buyer as well by implication. Okay? If you have any questions as we go, this is kind of like a recap of what we said before. Any questions, just let me know. Duties of a dual agent. So, Yvette, we go back to your question, and everybody pay attention. The dual agent's first duty is to disclose the agency relationship to both principal parties. So again, Mr. Seller, I represent the buyer. Mr. Buyer, I represent the seller. Is that okay? If they both agree, sign here. Simple as that, okay? Now, after disclosing, the agent, oh, by the way, they're not obligated to move forward. They might say, no, you either represent me or you represent them. We're not representing both, okay? So after discussing, the agent must obtain the written consent of both parties. If both parties accept the dual agency, the agent owes all the fiduciary duties to both parties except full disclosure, undivided loyalty, and exclusive representation of the principal's interests, right? Because you cannot be loyal to both, right? You cannot give full disclosure to both. We talked about the monies, for instance, right? So very, very important. Could it happen? Yes. In recent years, brokerage industry has striven to clear up the question of who works for whom and who owes fiduciary duties to whom. A recent solution allows a broker to represent no one in a transaction. So pay attention to this one, which is the most difficult one to understand. You either represent the seller, the buyer, both, or none. Right here. This, that is that the broker is a transaction broker or a transaction facilitator. Okay? And it is not an agent of either the buyer or the seller. In this relationship, the facilitator does not advocate the interests of either party. The duties of the transaction broker or facilitator. What must you do? In the role of a transaction broker, look, I have everything highlighted. It's important, right? The roles, in the role of a transaction broker, the broker's duties and standards of conduct are to account for all money and property received or handled, to exercise reasonable skill and care, provide honesty and fair dealing, present all the offers in a timely fashion, assist the parties in closing the transaction, keeping the parties fully informed, advise the parties to obtain expert advice and counsel. So almost the same thing as being an agent, right? Almost the same thing. Disclose to both parties in a real residential sales transaction all the material facts that affect the property's value, and protect the confidence of both parties in matters that would materially disadvantage one party over the other. Almost the same thing, minus all the liability. See, in one of them, you promise that you represent their best interest. In this one, you promise that you'll do your job to the best of your ability. You see the difference? One is I promise, Miguel, I will represent you to the best of my ability. In the other one, I'm saying, hey, Miguel, listen, I'm the pro at real estate transactions, and I'll guide you all the way through, and we'll get you to close. Did I promise anything to the best of their interest? No. That's pretty much the difference. So what duties are not imposed on a transaction broker? Since there's no fiduciary duties or promise to uphold somebody's interest, right? The broker is held to standards for dealing with customers as opposed to clients. This includes being honest, fair dealing, and reasonable care. The transaction broker, look at this. The transaction broker is under no obligation to inspect the property for the benefit of a party or verify the accuracy of statements made by a party. So I don't have to inspect the property and say, hey, I found this. Nope, don't have to. Okay. Let me just finish this, Muslima, and I'll give you an example. As state regulatory authorities formalize the facilitator role, it is expected that brokers will have to obtain written consent from principal parties, just as in the case of dual agency. In New Jersey, the CIS or Consumer Information Statement explains to the client what it is to represent the seller, to represent the buyer, to represent both, or represent none. So in New Jersey, there's a CIS. We'll talk about it in the final week. You're going to have to see that document and understand that document. But this exists in New Jersey and a few other states. Now, as another response to the problem of who works for whom, some states have recently moved in the direction of disallowing sub-agency. So in this scenario, sub-agency is replaced by buyer agency and seller agency only. In other words, an agent either represents the buyer directly or the seller directly. An agent who shows a buyer property either represents the buyer or in fact the listing, or is in fact a listing agent. Note that this arrangement need not change traditional compensation structures. An agent may represent the buyer and still receive a portion of the commission paid by the seller. Okay, so we already talked about this. It's either seller or buyer, and you may still be compensated even though it's one or the other. All right, so back to Muslima's question, which was example of how one would be in a situation as a transaction broker. For you, it's a choice. Okay? For you, it's a choice. You guys understand? Like in our agency, we prefer to work as transaction brokers. So when we sit down with a client, we disclose, hey, Mr. Seller or Mrs. Buyer, right? This is how we prefer to work as a transaction broker, and this is what you could expect of me. Is that okay with you? So for us is an option, and then they have to choose an option, right? We are telling it's like A, B, C, D, right? Choose one. Whatever fits best for your needs, client or customer. Our preference, transaction broker. If the seller says nope, seller's agent only. If the buyer says nope, buyer's agent only, then you have two options. You either walk away or change your representation from transaction broker and barely any liability to seller's broker or agent and then full liability. You understand? So the question here is, how do you want or how do you intend to represent? Okay, that's what it is. Questions? Anybody? Questions? Nope. Okay, we're going to talk about agency disclosure rules. As I said earlier, anything and everything that could affect the transaction must be disclosed. So then depending on who you are, there are certain things that, or what role you play, there are certain disclosures that must be given and some that cannot. Okay. Elena's asking, okay. Guys, if you're typing something, always put a question mark first. This way I know you're typing and I don't move forward and then have to stop and come back. All right, but these are good questions. Are transaction brokers common? Yeah. It's becoming more and more common. A lot of people are dropping the role as a seller agent or a buyer's agent. They don't want the liability, right? Especially because both sellers and buyers are liars. You don't want that liability. It's what it is. You guys understand? So more and more agents are afraid of representing somebody to the best of their ability, and then that person is lying. That person is hiding, not disclosing certain things, and that makes you, the agent, liable for the non-disclosures. Okay. Miguel is asking, so given the choice, it's better to choose the middleman. Well, there's two types. There's the facilitator, transaction broker, and there's the dual agency. In both of them, you're the middleman or woman. So the best choice is transaction broker for you as an agent. And sometimes, if clients understand, it's still the best for them. Because look, certain things that stop me from selling your house could be the lack of disclosure, right? There are certain things that I should be able to pass along to the buyer within reason, right? Or to the seller within reason to facilitate the transaction. Simple. And that's what a transaction broker does. They'll be like, hey, Mr. Seller, anything you tell me, I'll tell the buyer. Mr. Buyer, anything you tell me, I'll tell the seller. Oh, you're going through a divorce? Sure. Hey, buyer, divorce. Not to that extent, but to give you an idea that the seller agency and the buyer's agency doesn't have that loyalty or confidentiality issue. You guys understand? So I might pass along certain type of information in order to conclude the sale. That's what we're going to go over this right now, but that's what a transaction broker pretty much does. Make sure the transaction concludes by almost any and all means, right? Elena's asking, do you get paid the same? Well, I do. I don't know about you, but I do. It depends. So everything's negotiable. What happens is, for instance, the seller might offer 6% commission, as an example. In our negotiations, let's say 6% commission. And then the agent splits that commission with whoever brings a buyer. Okay? Whether you are a transaction broker or a buyer's broker, that will not matter for you, but the listing agent could differentiate that in the listing. So let me go here. I have space here. So when you pull a listing, there's a box at the bottom that says SA 0%. It says TB 2%. And you could say BB 2.5%. You could. You could also say 2% across the board. So as a listing agent, I'll tell my client, the seller, hey, Mr. Seller or Mrs. Seller, if we offer sub-agency, we're extending the liability. And whatever the buyer's agent tells the buyer makes us liable. So we don't want that. That's why 0%. As a transaction broker, the buyer's agent is not fully liable for his or her actions when representing the buyer. So that could endanger our position as a seller. So let's offer less in case there's nothing else around. If somebody's willing to represent the buyer to the full liability or to the extent of their best ability, right? Then we'll pay them a little bit more, 2.5%. So if this is explained to the seller, remember, how the commission is split is up to the seller. A lot of brokerages think, and brokers think, they are the ones that decide the split. No. You can say as a principle of the agency, well, if we got 6%, we offer 40% of this. As an example. So from 6% we don't want to do 50-50. We don't want 3% to them and 3% to us. No. Let them fight for it, but we only give 2.5 or we give 2. You guys got it? So we can say that as a brokerage, but ultimately we have to tell the seller, because this goes in the listing agreement. Ultimately, we have to tell the seller, how are we playing with their money? Because that 6% is their money, not our money yet. So how are we playing? What are we willing to give? And the seller could tell you, well, why are you getting 3 or 4 and they're only getting 2? How's that representing me? Right? If you want to sell fast, and if you guys are smart, in today's market, there's no need for this. But in the buyer's market, where there's not as much properties, there's too many properties for sale. I'm sorry. In the buyer's market, the buyer demands whatever they want, right? So here, you want to make sure you have enough people biting or enough agents biting the bait. So this is where we offer whatever we want. We could be offering, we could be offering 3%. We could be offering 3.5%. It's still the same 6. It's just that we want a bigger bait. You guys got it? You want to catch a whale? You're going to go with a little bait to catch a whale? No. You want to have a bunch of fish coming at you? You're going to go with a little tiny bait? No. Offer more. You get paid less, but you have more people coming to your listings. So that's an idea. So transaction brokers is like having 2 customers, no loyalty to either or. Erica, on point. Yep. Yes, that's right. All right. By the way, guys, if we had, just a quick question. Let's say we see a bunch of properties, property 1, 2, 3. This one says SA0, BB 3%, BB 3%. Real quick, 3 properties that you're looking at. They all meet what your client wants. Which one would you show your client? Number 1, number 2, or number 3? Which property would you show your client? Let me know. Three properties that fit your client's description or requirements. Which one of these would you show your clients? Elena went 2, 1. Decide yourself. I want everybody to answer. Go ahead. Make sure everybody answers this one. Very, very important. Laura, absolutely. So Laura on YouTube already gave me the answer I was expecting. Let me know, guys. Which one? Oh, Chris is there. He answered. I don't even see. Don't forget you need to be on camera, man. Very, very important. There you go. Are you guys changing answers? Did somebody change answers? Never, ever, ever change answers, okay? Oh, somebody. You guys ready for the ultimate answer? Ready? Let me do this. Ready? For those of you that answered 1, 2, or 3, sharks is what you are. Sharks. You're looking at commission versus looking at your client's needs. I'm just messing with you guys. This is a joke. But I want you guys to understand one thing. The majority of the realtors out there, that's how they operate. That's their MO. They're going to look at the highest commission versus what the client wants or what the client needs. So with that in mind, talk to your seller. Explain to your seller. Hey, listen, the reason why I charge 7% or 8% is because I want to give a bigger bait to the sharks out there. Simple. You want to sell your property? Pay more commission. Because then we split more commission. Okay? SA is sub-agency. We don't offer that in most states. Okay? Miguel, absolutely. Principal first, agent second. So which property would you show? All. All right, I need to pick because then it'll be. All right, so we cover that. So the realtor has the choice to talk to the seller about commission. So in the state of New Jersey, it's negotiable. So yeah, you can negotiate with the seller the commission that you're willing to charge, and you can start at 10%. You can start at 20%. It's negotiable. All right. It's just the higher the number, the more difficult it is for you to secure that listing, right? Because people get scared, considering that the average commission out there or the common commission out there is 5-6%, around there. All right. Yvette already answered. As you were typing, I was answering. I knew the question was coming, so I put it right in there. I'm a 10. Don't tell that to Osmani, okay? I charge 10%. That's my standard. I got you. All right. Okay, so Verona's asking, I always thought it was from the broker. Okay, so let's understand the broker's position. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but let's understand the broker's position. The broker is supposed to offer you guidance, direction. The broker doesn't negotiate anything for you. They don't go knock on doors. The broker will tell you, hey, this office guidelines are, and you follow the office guidelines. So if the broker says, Verona, the broker says, minimum commission 4%, anything below that is on you. You're going to go out there and negotiate. You already know that anything below 4% comes out of your pocket. Okay? My dad used to work for an agency not too long ago that the commission the listing agreement had to be 6%. Anything below 6% comes out of his pay. So they would have the 70-30 split, for instance, but out of his 70 split, he needs to cover the 1% that's missing on the actual listing. Crazy, right? So every agency has their rules and regulations regarding what is acceptable within the agency. So, Verona, the broker doesn't get out of the room to go knock on a door. You do it for them, and you negotiate on their behalf. So that's what a broker does. They guide you. Nurika, it's sub-agency or sub-agent. So sub-agency, transaction brokerage, or buyer's broker. A lot of questions coming. You guys want to know about monies. Another chapter. All right, does the broker mandate whether or not you can be a transaction broker? They don't mandate, they recommend. Okay? They recommend that you act as a transaction broker or a buyer's broker or whatever, but it's based on their office guidelines. It's not against the law, so it's okay to say, hey, always try for 6% and transaction broker. Okay? So internally, I can say those things. I can tell you, hey, this month, it's we're in September, push for 9%. Right? Imagine we go to December, but we can choose whatever we want as a goal, as an objective. But in the state of New Jersey, like a lot of states, it's negotiable. So can the seller or the buyer say, I don't want you to be a transaction broker? Yeah, they can say that. Do you have to move forward? No. Can the broker enforce that it's a transaction broker? It's the office guidelines. If they say yes, it has to be transaction broker, then hey, it is what it is. But normally, what they do is recommend certain things. They don't mandate, they recommend. What is a fair split for a broker and agent? The average split in state of New Jersey and a lot of states is a 70-30 split. Your broker keeps 30%, you keep 70%. There are companies out there that offer more, but they charge you fees. There are companies out there that offer less, and they still charge you fees. Anyway, you just gotta interview and see what they offer. What do you think it's fair? You have no experience. Let's start now. You have no experience. What do you think would be a fair commission? Let me know. Let me know. You think it's a fair commission? You have no experience. I have to babysit you. I have to show you the ropes, every single detail. What do you think it's fair? Stephanie says 70% for the broker, 30% for Stephanie. No, it's the other way around? Oh, okay. All right. I tried. All right. So 70-30 is fair. But there are some agencies out there that give you 50-50 in the first few transactions. And they charge you fees. At the end of the day, this is fair for you? Francielli, we're hiring. Right now. Come over. Right now. All right. It's a joke. 60-40 with broker paying marketing cost. Wishful thinking. Wishful thinking. I'm going to market for you not to do anything. Show me what you got, and then we'll consider me paying for your marketing costs. Does that make sense? A lot of agencies have that premises. Show me what you got, and then we'll increase your commission split, or we'll provide you support in terms of marketing. Until then, why would I bet on you? You just got licensed. Think about it. All right? I'm not saying no. I'm not saying agencies like that don't exist where they offer you everything. Right? They do exist. But there's not many. And if they do, they don't charge you up front. They'll charge you in the back end. Because no agency can survive without either fees or a split. The bills have to get paid. Show me an agency that doesn't charge you any fees and gives you like 100% commission and stuff like that, right? And I'll tell you that something is wrong. They're charging you at closing, or they'll figure something out. I'm telling you. Anyway, the key thing about this, what I was asking, what was fair? Don't look at commission splits. What is fair is that you get training. If the company gives you a 50-50 but gives you a lot of training, hands-on, let's go get this done, in the beginning, that's what you need. I could give you 100% commission. If I don't give you any training, then where are you going? 90% of realtors are not self-starters. 90% of realtors have not sold anything in their life as a realtor. And then there's like that 10%, and within the 90%, sometimes they wake up. And then there's that 10% that are go-getters. I don't need you. I'll make this happen regardless. And once I bring it in, just help me prepare it. That's all. You understand? Everybody's different. So don't look so much at splits in the beginning. Look more at training. Look more at fees. What's coming out of your pocket? Because if you're paying $1,000 a month, as an example, and I'm exaggerating, so hold on. But if you're paying $1,000 a month, at the end of the year, it's $12,000. If you don't close anything, right? Did it matter what the split was? It doesn't. You need to close. You need to learn the ropes. You need to take action. All right? Now, we'll talk about commissions another time. Let's complete this chapter. Objectives of disclosure. Why do we need to disclose? See, disclosure removes the confusion about who an agent is working for. It may obviate complaints arising from customers or clients who feel that they have been deceived. So the more you disclose, the more comfortable the client or the customer gets. So specifically, the requirement to disclose aims to notifying the clients about or customers about whom the agent represents, informing clients or customers of the fiduciary duties and standards of care that the agent owes them, informing prospective clients and customers that they have a choice in how they are represented. This is something that barely ever happens. Nobody goes to clients and say, hey, we could be transaction broker or we could be seller's agent. All right? It's a form that must be presented at the beginning and then at contract. So there's a form that must be presented, a disclosure of how you could represent. But a lot of realtors, again, a lot of salespeople, broker salespeople and brokers, they just tell you to sign, they fill out the form later. Or they slide that form with another bunch of papers that you need to sign. You understand? So that's really bad habits, really bad practice. And if you work for an agency like that, I tell you right now, walk away, because one day it's going to come back to haunt you. Very, very important. They might be very successful, make a lot of money, sure, right? But I prefer to, grab my pillow, fluff it a little bit, put my head on it, close both eyes, and sleep through the night than having to sleep with one eye open and very uncomfortable. You guys understand? So make sure you disclose that they have a choice of how they're represented. Obtaining also acknowledgement that they accepted this disclosure. It's also very important. Obtaining acknowledgement that they accepted that you represent the seller or represent the buyer. Okay? Very, very important. We already covered this. It's just repeating over and over and over, whether you represent one, the other, or both. Make sure you guys pay attention. You can leave discussions for later. Just saying. Whoever is getting into the room or whoever is in the room, letting you guys know, we're almost done. Save it for later. Focus on this or ask questions. Make sure the conversation is pertinent to what we're going over. Not for me, for you, okay? We talked about this already, showing the property exclusions. Client disclosure, customer disclosure, we talked about it. Prohibited disclosures. So, Yvette, going back to your previous question, isn't that conflict of interest? Well, there are certain things you can't disclose. We talked about it, right? So state regulations prohibit dual agents from making certain disclosures. For instance, a dual agent, unless expressly instructed by the relevant party, unless the seller told you so, unless the buyer told you so, a real estate agent cannot disclose to the buyer that the seller will accept less than the listed price, as we said earlier. To the seller that the buyer will pay more than the price submitted in a written offer to the seller. We said this earlier, right? The motivation of any party concerning the transaction, like why are they selling? You're not going to give that representation to the other party and say, hey, oh, it's a divorce, right? No, don't do that, okay? That the seller or buyer will agree to financing terms other than those offered. So, guys, there's things you must disclose, and these are things you can't disclose. So, again, just to recap. All right? We are done with that chapter. So, in the state portion, there's a lot more to it, okay? In the state portion. All right, guys, so here's what I'm going to do. This listing agreement is a short chapter, right? But we only have 1 hour. We extended with questions about commissions and what do we get paid or don't get paid. So here's my question. It's now 8:30. Would you guys allow me to start chapter 12 and we'll go a little bit over 9:30, or you want to do like a quick Q&A and call it a day or a night? Let me know in the chat what you'd like to do. Let's vote. I don't mind because I'll be here until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, so it's fine. See the votes here. Okay. Laura says on YouTube, keep the train going, do all the chapters tonight. All right. So Q&A 1, the majority said Q&A. There's like 5 starts and there's like 10 or 11 Q&As. All right, so let's we'll do the listing tomorrow. But here's what we're gonna do. Here's what we're gonna do. As far as Q&A, I'm gonna take you to the end of this book, and I'm gonna go with you over like a quick review of everything until now. Okay, that works for an hour. All right. So Laura, you got better than what you wished for. Instead of doing all the chapters, I review all the chapters. You have these tests available in the student portal, okay? And I'm gonna show you, start teaching you guys how to actually review, okay? The questions, how to go through the questions. Second. All right. Ready? Thumbs up. You ready? Great. All right. So the way to look at questions. This is a quick training for those of you that are going to take the state exam, right, Laura? And for those of you that are not yet there, it's you start practicing for it. So very, very important. How should you look at the question? Do not look at all the answers right away. Read it in order. Very, very important. Do not answer anything until you've done reading the end of it. So what I'm going to do with you guys, is I'm going to ask the question. So this is a little game that we're going to play real quick. You ready for it? The game is I read the question, I go through every single answer, and once I'm done with it, you guys type the answer in the Zoom chat. The first one to answer correctly gets points. The one that participates the least gets penalties. What do you guys think? Oh yeah, forcing you guys to participate. If you answer correctly, the one that answers the most questions correctly and is the first one to answer points, the one that participates the least gets a penalty. Ready? All right. Oh, by the way, make sure your books are closed. So this way you don't look at the answers. All right? So make sure your books are closed. The e-books as well, close them up. So here's a question. Property management and real estate asset management are both real estate management professions. The primary distinction between the two is that property managers always report to an asset manager. Asset managers have greater knowledge of a property's finances. Property managers handle day-to-day operations while asset managers manage portfolios of properties. And D is asset managers are primarily responsible for, oh, you're all failed. You're all failed. I did not finish reading. Rule number 1, you have to wait until I'm done reading. You have to be patient. That's how you failed the exam. You looked at C. Oh, C is familiar. Let me go for it. All right. Asset managers are primarily responsible for maintenance technicians. Go. Erica. Cool. So the answer is C. Erica just won. So the answer is C. So property managers handle day-to-day, and we see this on page 8. If you want to take a reference on your on the notebook or whatever paper you're using, okay. So the answer is C, and it's on page 8 of the first chapter. All right, question number 2. People in the real estate business who primarily focus on creating new properties are brokers. Actually, guys, do me a favor. When you answer, put the question number so I know you're addressing the right question. Put the question number and then the answer. So people in the real estate business who primarily focus on creating new properties are brokers, developers, zoning administrators, or excavators. Oh, that was quick. All right, so let me see here. Stephanie M for the win. Okay, she was the fastest one. So the answer is B, developers. We have this on page 7. So if you have the first edition, if it's the physical book, you might be off by a little bit. Page 7. in the second edition. All right, sorry. The term commercial property. This is question number 3. Question number 3. The term commercial property generally refers to non-owner occupied properties, retail, office, and industrial properties. All right. Stop right there. I see some of you already writing the answer. Big mistake when you go to the state exam. Big mistake. Read all. Slow down. I'm going to be very annoying today, but this is the way you have to do it, because sometimes there's an answer that looks like it could be the correct answer, and then we get to the final answer and it's oh, it's this one. Okay, so pay attention, close attention. C is multi-tenant properties, or D, retail properties. I had not finished, but David got it. David Baskerville. You know why? Because some of you answered before I finished saying properties. Game. It's a game. Okay? You had to hit the buzzer at the right time. So David, congratulations. You won a point right now. All right? So, correct answer is B, retail, office, and industrial properties, and it's on page 9. Number 4. Which of the following professionals involved in the real estate business are most concerned about procuring buyers and sellers for clients? Brokers and agents, property managers, corporate real estate managers, or D, appraisers. Miguel, you were too fast. I had not finished. So the second up was Erica. Very good. Erica got 2 points. But very good, guys. You're all on point. Very good. All right. Next. And you can find the answer for this on page 10. Number 5. Question number 5. Which of the following ways of specializing is common in the real estate brokerage business? By type of house, by geography, by financial background of a client, or by type of mortgage. All right, and in this case, Yvette is the winner. The answer is B, as in boy, by geography, and we have this on page 11. So which of the following ways of specializing is common? Particular market, by geography, particular market. Okay. Number 6. What is an advisory service provider? A broker of fee simple titles, a corporate real estate broker, a broker performing non-transactional services for a commission, or a broker who renders real estate services for a... I didn't finish. fee. And Yurka wins. Yurka, you got 1 point. Very good. I know it's annoying, but that's what game shows are like, right? They're very annoying. All right, so the correct answer for 6 is D, a broker who renders real estate services for a fee. You find that on page 11. Sometimes it doesn't seem fair, does it? And the winner is, we'll be right back after the commercial. Never fair when they do that. All right, next question, question number 7. The level of government which is most active regulating real estate licenses is, so for question number 7, is it federal government, state government, Don't put the answer yet. I'm telling you. I see you. All right, I'm like a spider. I can see all these and the flies. I can see all your faces at the same time. I see when you go like this. State government, county government, or municipal government where the person, Stefani, you have to wait, resides. Francielli, you just got a point. All right. Anyway. All right, guys, we're going to jump into chapter 2. Make sure you're writing down so you know how many correct answers you had so you can study later on. It's very important. You're doing a self-assessment. I'm not counting how many of you had it right or had it wrong. I'm just giving points by giving the correct answer on time, okay? And participation, very important. But I'm glad that almost everybody is getting the correct answer. So I think there's just one or two once in a while that have been failing, but other than that, the majority on point. Love it. Okay, so let's go to chapter 2, rights in real estate. So question number 1. What guarantees the right of private ownership of real estate in the United States? What guarantees the right of private ownership of real estate in the United States? A, common law. B, local statutes. C, Napoleonic Code. Or D, the Constitution. Well, let's see. I don't even know who won on this one. Erica, first one to come in. Jeffrey was second. That was good. That was good. Very good. So correct answer is D, and you find it on page 25. Constitution is the one that regulates the supreme rights that you have on a property. Number 2, which of the following is the best definition of real estate? Okay, I see some of you just got on the edge of their seats. All right, let's go. Warm up. Let's do this. Number 2, is it A, land and personal property? Is it B, unimproved land? C, land and everything permanently attached to it? Or D, an ownership interest in land and improvements? Jeffrey just got a point. All right, you made your first one. There you go. He's all happy. I think Elena was happier than you are. Even did a little dance after. So the correct answer is C as in Charles. Land and everything permanently attached to it is on page 17. Number 3, which of the following is included in the legal concept of land? Is it the surface of the earth and all natural things permanently attached to the earth? Is it only the surface of the earth that is delineated by boundaries? Is it the surface of the earth except for lakes and streams? Or is it everything above, on, and below the surface of the earth? Francielli just got a point. All right. The answer is D as in David. Just messing with you. Don't write that answer. I was messing with you. Incorrect. Everything above, on, and below the surface of the earth, is that what you own? Is that the concept of land? All right. So the reason why I want you guys to slow down, right? So that was not the correct answer. So the reason why I want you guys to slow down is very important. There are very, especially here, there are very similar answers, right? Very similar answers. But what they're asking for is land. If they asked about real estate, yeah, it could have been D. But what they asked about is land. So let's try this one more time, guys. What would the answer be for question number 3 when they're asking about land? Question number 3 when they're asking about land. Right? And Muslima put 4, but I know that was for 3. All right. So correct answer is A, and the first person to have it right before was Erica. So now, because I stopped and I gave you guys again, Erica and Muslima, both of you get a point. And we find this on page 16. So page 16, it's the surface of the earth and all natural, this was the key word right here, all natural things. Okay? Firmly attached to nature. If they ask about real estate, then yeah, it could have been this. They asked about real estate, but they didn't. They asked about land. So A is the answer. Erica, Muslima, point. Yep, you got it right. All right, so that was the first one for me to trick you guys. Be ready, because there's more. Just proving a point. What are the 3 unique physical characteristics of land? Fixed, unchangeable, and homogeneous. Immobile, indestructible, and heterogeneous. 3-dimensional, buildable, and marketable. Or natural, measurable, and inorganic. All right, some of you are putting 5. Hold on. It's 4. And we got Erica, that was for 4, right? So B. Correct answer for 4 is B as in boy. Immobile, you can't move it, you can't destroy it, and it's unique. You find this on page 17 of this book. The correct answer is B as in boy. Correct answer right there. Guys, see some faces just started drooping a little bit. Don't feel bad. You just had 1 week of this, right? And I'm tricking you guys. So relax. The primary distinction between the legal concepts of land and real estate. The primary distinction between legal concept of land and real estate is that real estate includes air above the surface and minerals below the surface. Real estate is indestructible. Land has no defined boundaries. Land does not include man-made structures. Stephanie M., you just got a point, do you think? Let's see, you're the first one to answer. Hold on. Let me see. Ooh, all the answers coming through. For 5, you answered... Close. Very similar. There's a similar answer. We're talking about the major difference between land and real estate. What is the major difference? If I took this out, isn't that the definition of land? All right? Close. Real estate is not indestructible, so B is definitely not. Let's go process of elimination. B is definitely not part of it. And there's definitely boundaries. So we're between A and D. And if we read land, just like real estate, includes the air above and the surface and minerals below it. What land does not include, the biggest difference between these two is that land does not include man-made structures. So with that being said, and we find this, by the way, page 18. With that being said, the first correct answer is from Erica. There you go. One more point. All right. Correct answer is D as in David. Question number 6. The primary distinction between legal concepts of real estate and real property. The primary distinction between real estate and real property is that. So before it was between land and real estate. Now it's real estate and real property. What is the primary distinction or difference between these two? Is it that real property includes ownership of a bundle of rights? Real property includes improvements. Real property is physical, not abstract. Or real estate can be owned. All right, Yvette was the first one to answer. Hold on. The answer that you got was... Sorry, it's a tiny screen here for the chat. So. All right, and the correct answer, Yvette got it. Correct answer is A. Real property includes ownership of a bundle of rights. Yvette just got a point. All right, guys. Now, don't feel bad if you're not getting points. You're getting your answers through, and most of your answers are on point. So we're good. All right, we're good. Have you ever watched the show Whose Line Is It Anyway? Anybody? Raise your hand. Let me see. Raise your hand if you ever watched Whose Line Is It Anyway? Okay, 1, 2, 3 people. Okay, cool. So you guys already know that they do the stand-up comedy, the improvs, whatever, and they throw a bunch of points, but points really don't matter, right? It's not about the points, it's about what we're doing here. That's what matters, okay? So this is not comedy, but David, points don't matter, and that's my favorite show. It was always one of my favorite shows. So, until recently, changed completely. Which of the following is included in the bundle of rights inherent in ownership? Is it to inherit, the right to inherit? Is it the right to tax? Is it the right to transfer? Or is it the right to vote? Verona. All right, 1 point for Verona. It's C, the right to transfer. We find it on page 18. Very good. Everybody got this answer. Good. All right, number 8. Which of the following is an example of intangible property? What is intangible? Think about it. What's an example of it? We have A, real estate, B, personal property, C, artwork, or D, stock. Yvette, first one to answer. Yep, correct. 8 is D as in David, stock. Because A, you can hold on to. Personal property, you can hold on to. Artwork, you can hold on to. Stock represents something that's intangible. Stock market, for instance. You got it? It's a certificate to something that you can't hold on to. You guys got it? You guys enjoying this so far? Good. Awesome. 9. The right to use real property is limited by A, the right of others to use and enjoy their property. B, the police. C, taxation and subordination. Or D, Title 12 of the United States Civil. I didn't finish, guys. Code. Erica. Let's see if the answer is correct. You wrote. They're coming through. Wrote A. And the correct answer is, for 9, A. And you find it on page 19. The right to use limited property, the property is limited by other parties, private parties. Okay. 10. Surface rights, air rights, and subsurface rights are inviolable, unrelated, separable, or not transferable. Very good. Yvette was the first one to answer. And the correct answer is C as in Charlie. You find that on page 20. So you can separate the rights. You can sell them independently, right? We can sell the air rights. We can sell the subsurface or mineral rights, water rights. You can sell everything independently. Simple. All right, which of the following terms refers to the rights of a property that abuts a stream or river? Which of the following terms refers to the rights of a property that abuts a stream or river? Allodial rights, alluvial rights, littoral rights, or riparian rights? First one to answer was Jeffrey. All right. I'm telling you, Elena makes more of a party than he does. He just goes like, I got this. And she's like throwing a party over there. Correct answer is riparian, because there's a river or a stream, so therefore riparian. R for river, right? So riparian. You find this on page 22. 12. What part of a non-navigable waterway does the owner of an abutting property own? Non-navigable, right? The low water mark, the middle of the waterway, the high water mark, or none? None. By the way, Erica, you had the answer before I finished. So, Yvette, you get second place, which now is 1 because Erica got disqualified for this question. So the answer is B. And you find this on page 22. Okay. Next. 13. What is the doctrine of prior appropriation? The doctrine of prior appropriation. Is it a preemptive zoning ordinance, right of governments to confiscate lands and improvements, the doctrine that gives the state control of water use and the water supply, or a real estate tax applied to owners' rights? Yvette for the win. So the answer is doctrine that gives a state control of water use and water supply. So technically the state owns all the water. Okay, they own all the water and they control all the water. You find this on page 21. That was a guess? Well, great. Well, you had it right. Nice guess. $14. Which of the following is considered real property? Which of the following is considered real property? Let me just point something out before I move forward. If you guys happen to have, anybody happen to have the book open on the PDF or physical book, just saying, cheating doesn't help here. This is really just a quick self-assessment. It's totally up to you. So make sure you give it your best shot. Just saying. Okay? Which of the following is considered real property? A tree growing on a parcel of land. A tree that has been cut down and is now lying on a parcel of land. Let's leave the answer is blank. Wait for it. C. A tractor used to mow grass on the parcel of land. Or a prefabricated shed not yet assembled on the parcel. Parcel. I didn't answer yet. I didn't finish. Parcel of land. All right. Elena got a point. No. Stop. Jeffrey, do the dance. Jeffrey. Okay, there you go. All right, she did it for you a bunch of times, so now you do it for her. Just saying. Muslima says she got the point first. You answered blank. Nope. You answered blank and then you answered below. Yep. Verona says it was me. All right. You guys disputing? Okay, hold on. We're going to go check the replay. Give me a second. Time out. So, yeah, Verona, you did answer. But at the time, I remember, all right, I'm not taking a point away, but you know, you're already smiling. You know what I'm talking about. You hit enter before I finished. Okay, you already know. You already know. $15. I'm trying to convert this to just takes a long time to set up everything. So I'm converting this to Kahoot. I don't know if you guys ever heard of Kahoot, but Kahoot is where you get to press the answer and automatically gives you whether you are first or second or whatever. So everybody on their phones will get to, or computer will get to play, and I don't have to be here figuring out who answered first or second or whatever. All right, so it's really cool. Just takes some time to set up. Now 15. The overriding test of whether an item is a fixture or personal property. The overriding test of whether it's a fixture or personal property is how long it's been attached to the property, its definition as one or the other in a sale of a lease or a lease of a contract, how essential it is to functioning of the property, or how it was treated in previous transactions. The overriding, okay? Okay, Jeffrey was the first to answer. But Jeffrey, You don't have the correct answer. Yvette is right after you and has the correct answer. Mwah, mwah. Sorry. Correct answer is B as in boy. So, what are the 4 legal tests? Let me explain this one. You can find this on page 24. What are the 4 legal tests of a fixture? Method of attachment, right? The relationship of the parties, the intention of the party annexing the item, and the adaptation of the article to the property. So these are the 4 tests. What they're asking is, what is the overriding test? Overriding. What trumps these 4 tests? Right? It's pretty much what we write on the contract. Simple. What do we define this to be when we're selling or leasing? Is this considered like a trade fixture? Is it considered a tenant fixture? Is it real property? Where does it go? We determine that by a contract. So there's a legal test of a fixture, right? The normal legal test of a fixture. Yvette just wrote, sorry, Jeffrey. There's a legal test of a fixture, and then there's something that can override all this stuff. So it seems to be part of the property and real estate, but if you want to take it at the end, you can take it. Whatever we define. Okay, so because it said overriding, a contract overrides any of these things if it's by mutual agreement. Okay? (16) What is an emblement? A piece of equipment affixed to the earth, a limited right to use, personal property, a sign indicating a property boundary, or a plant or crop that is considered personal. I didn't finish. Stop. Type it all over again. A plant or crop that is considered personal property. Right after Elena, let me see. Yurka, there you go. Now, there you go. Yurka, you got a point. Very good. So, 16 is D. Personal property is, or emblements are personal property. So plants or crops. And you find that on page 24. Very good. Millie, I don't think that's an answer. Oh, well, oh, because you answered first. Yep. You had a right. You went to C, but you did answer first, but it was incorrect, and it's okay. Guys, don't be upset at today, okay? 17. We'll finish chapter 2, and we'll be done for the night. 17. An item that can be converted from real to personal property and vice versa by means of which processes? To be converted from personal property to real to personal and vice versa. Assemblage and plottage, application and dissolution, affixing and severance, or D, personality and severalty. David, let's see what you got. David is the first one after Yvette made a mistake and shook her head. David got C as in Charlie. Affixing to the property makes it real property, right? Severing it or cutting it from the property makes it personal property. Very good. Chris, Q, I don't think is one of the options. I don't see Q. I see all the way to D. I don't see anything else. What's the Q for? (18) The major sources of real estate law are legislation at federal, state, and local level, and court decisions, professional real estate associations, real estate commissions, or local practices. Erica was the first one. Let's see if the correct answer. Nope. Let's see who's next. All right, the guesser had it right. So Yvette, 1 point. Okay, and the answer is on page 26. You knew this one? Good. So there's federal, there's state, there's local, and then the court can also make a decision on real estate law. 19. What is the primary thrust of federal involvement in real estate law? Taxation, licensing, broad regulation of usage, or zoning? Oh. Elena was the first one to answer. Hold on. And the correct answer is C as in Charlie. Elena. Go ahead, Jeffrey. Do the dance. Do the dance. There you go. There you go. Correct answer is C. And you find it on page 25. Right. Not bad. Not bad at all. Guys, some of your answers, like taxation, is a normal thing. Taxation is at municipal level. So they trickle down to municipality, but it's at municipal level. So they're asking about federal involvement. They have a broad range of regulations, but nothing that specific. It trickles down to, again, local, where they have taxation and zoning, right? So federal, they ask state. They ask something more local or state level, whatever. It could be any of the other options. So very good. 20. Which level of government controls zoning laws? State, taxing authorities, federal, or county and local. I think I gave you the answer on that one, right? Right, 20, 20, 20. Oh, let's see who's there. And Yvette got the answer. And Chris was right after. Close. It was very close, Chris. Very close. All right. So, correct answer was county and local, which I had just explained with question 19, right? And you find this on page 26. Question number 21. We're almost done. Question number 21. Franciele had a headache yesterday. Now I just gave her a headache. Yep. Okay. 21. A grocer temporarily installs special fruit and vegetable coolers in a leased grocery store in order to prevent spoilage. The coolers would be considered which of the following? By the way, something very similar to this was on the state exam. Somebody asked me this question yesterday and I gave him the answer. Okay, so very similar to this. The question is, the cooler will be considered which of the following? Trade fixtures that are real property, trade fixtures that are personal property, permanent fixtures that are real property, or permanent fixtures that are personal property. First one to answer was Yvette. And Millie right after. And the correct answer is B as in boy. Here's the thing. This is a business. Being a business, these don't count. Being a business, they are trade fixtures. So now we're down to 2, right? So use process of elimination, guys. Sometimes that's what it works. So down to 2. Now, Are trade fixtures real property? No, because when we install them, we have the intent of removing later. Remember I said that I have 2 TVs here, 1 in the back as well, so 3 TVs. And these are installed for the class purposes. I did not install these for the landlord to keep them. So it comes with a covenant that I will remove them later. So trades means business, and they are personal property. Removable personal property. Okay? Good? Some of you gave up on answering? Don't. Make sure you always put your answers. All right, you can find this on page 24. All right, final question, guys. Final question. Under the doctrine of littoral rights, an owner claims ownership of all of the land underlying a lake where there are 3 other abutting property owners. Which of the following is true? A bunch of questions of which of the following is true, right? So, the owner's claim is invalid because the state owns the underlying land. The owner's claim is invalid because the underlying land is shared equally with the other owners. The owner's claim is invalid because he may only own underlying land to the middle of the lake. And the owner's claim is valid because the lake is navigable. And the first one to answer was Yvette. Okay. And the correct answer is, sorry, I didn't even read the question. I read it to you guys. I didn't read it for myself. What? You're saying you were first? I can screenshot what I have here. Well, on my end is what matters. On my end is what matters. I'm sorry, Erica. On my end is what matters. I can, you know what? That's what we're doing, huh? See how it is. There you go. I hope I got the right one. I did the wrong screenshot. Cool. So, anyway, I didn't even say if it was correct or not. I didn't read the question. You started arguing already. Let's see. Correct answer. Under the doctrine of littoral rights, an owner claims ownership of all of the land underlying a lake where there are 3 other abutting property owners. Which of the following is true? The owner's claim is invalid because the state owns the underlying land. That would be correct answer. You find this on page 21. Correct answer is A, so Yvette gets the point. All right? So guys, we're going to stop right here because then it's chapter 3. It's 9:21 right now. But it's very important, guys. Very important that you guys understand how to go through these questions. All right? I know we're playing a game. I know we're trying to it was page 21. Trying to have fun with this. Some of you took it a little bit serious. I saw your faces changing along the way. But this is just for fun. What I want you to do is assess yourself and see where you are. For me, tonight does not matter as far as who got it right or who got it wrong. What matters is the participation and the understanding of why it's one thing or another. Does that make sense, guys? So I will test you 4 weeks from now. As of right now, this is self-assessment. And each chapter in the student portal has these and the answers right at the end, okay? So I'm adding the final ones. There's just a few chapters there so far. I'm adding everything else tonight. And make sure you do test yourselves. Very, very important. Use the Quizlets. Use these questions right here. Watch the videos again. Ask questions. That's the main thing. Ask questions. As you're studying, Bruno, take a screenshot, send it to me. Bruno, could you explain this? I'll explain it to you. Okay? Deal? All right, guys. Oh, Stephanie is asking, what is littoral? So littoral, real quick, littoral, L for lake. It's water rights. If it was riparian rights, it would be for rivers. But you do not own rights to a lake or to a river if it's navigable, for instance. So remember, the doctrine of prior appropriation says that the state owns all the underlying land and water. So first would be the state, and then will be everybody else. So unless it says here that it's not navigable, the property belongs to the state. The water belongs to. Okay? These are the key things to look at. All right? So again, guys, if there's no further questions, I bid you good night, and I will see you tomorrow at 5:30. If anybody wants to participate, like check the classes again, the morning classes, if you have the time, you're always welcome to join. All right? Have a wonderful evening, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.